Angelica Neri joins In the Calm. Angelica is an Ayurvedic practitioner, a Vedic astrologer, and host of Divine Healers podcast. She's also a spiritual entrepreneur coaching others how to unlock and open their intuitive gifts for business and heal their physical bodies. She shares with us how her body began shutting down, forcing her to really listen to that deeper intuitive nudge, and this changed everything in her life. Growing a life, business, and intuition can be a journey of resistance and block, or one of magic and flow. Luckily for us, our bodies are built to know the way. When we learn how to tune into this wisdom, everything and anything is possible. And in this episode, we dive into it all: how to overcome blocks, opening to your intuition, intuitive eating, and the modern breakdown of Ayurveda. Angelica also shares her favorite wellness routines with us and so much more. Let's dive in. Welcome to In the Calm. I'm your host, Georgiana Alexander. Angelica, I'm so excited for you to be here today. Welcome to In the Calm.
Oh, thank you so much, Georgie. I'm super happy and stoked for this conversation.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one, you guys. So I know you heard a bit about Angelica in the intro, but she's amazing. She has such a beautiful story of life, healing, not trusting instincts, regaining confidence in those intuitions, finding that path, getting pulled away from the nudge of that, and then having to reclaim that again, and now sharing that wisdom with others. You just dive in a little bit to your origin story.
Yeah, so if I can kind of extract the common theme that comes up to me every single time I'm initiated into a spiritual awakening or whatever you want to call it, it really is always asking me to step into my power. So previously, in order to step into your power, you have to learn how you are outsourcing your power to other things and places and relationships. So a common thread for me is definitely giving away my power to others. And this has brought me to burnout frequently in my body, just because I'm quite literally giving away my energy and just tossing it away like it's nothing. So
can I interject really quickly before we dive further? Can you share with us your human design? I love human design. Okay, so because then everybody can, for reference, think, oh, that's me. Maybe that relates.
Totally. And I mean, mine just lines up perfectly for my whole story. So that'll be helpful for your audience. I'm a projector, a 1-3 projector.
Okay. I'm 3-5 projector, so emotional. So that's why when I heard you, I was like, I would bet she's got to be a projector. This makes so much sense. And so I was like, oh, I want to remember to ask you straight away. So, okay, now back to finding your way as a projector.
Yes. So I feel like I've always wanted to, run with the pack. Like, let's say the rest of the world is operated by manifesting generators and feeling like I can only be accepted if I kind of like go into this homogenous society. So I always have, and that's probably funny hearing from other people, like my friends and family, because I've always been just like off the beaten path. But in order to like really get to the heart and the truth of who I am, I've had to constantly peel back these layers. So it started when I first got out of college. I mean, I was never going to work like a classic 9-to-5, like in a cubicle setting. That was for sure never going to happen. But I kind of did like an in-between one where I worked in fashion PR. So like very creative, like love helping women feel beautiful. However, it was like in that 9-to-5 structure, not getting paid at all, totally burnt out, had walking pneumonia. Like it was so to the point where I completely lost my voice one time. Like there was so much to that where I was really hiding. I already had my yoga certification at that point, and it really just like all seamlessly aligned where I just dove into becoming a full-time instructor, yoga instructor. And that was really scary because, I have a business marketing major. I come from a family who's very like Italian, and my dad grew this like amazing business and construction. So everyone's like so logical, and they're like, I'm sorry, you want to be a yoga instructor? Like they really thought I was like losing it. And and you really have to stay so truthful, but like I could not escape what felt really right for me and what I knew to be true in my body. And that's kind of the golden compass that I always come back to is, okay, where do I feel most powerful? And when I think about power, it's my intuitive gifts, it's trusting my body, trusting my emotions, trusting how spirit is communicating through me, and allowing myself to be that clear vessel for divine's expression to channel through. So that was piece one.
Amazing.
To it. And then I wanted to kind of create, I was like, okay, yeah, this is the life I want to live, but like it's totally unsustainable to be a full-time yoga instructor, burn out again. So I had these stories of just like burning out over and over again, outsourcing my power. This time, even though I was at a yoga studio, I was working for a corporation that, again, not getting paid for my gifts well, and just getting paid overtime, or not getting paid overtime and giving away too much of my energy. And then the next step of my journey was, okay, I'm going to start and go off on my own. And I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. That's in my father's lineage. His father, my dad started their business. I just absolutely loved that part of myself. At the time, though, it felt super scary just to trust myself and to start my own business alone. I basically wasn't going to do it. And so I think Spirit sent me the perfect person that could help me, and we could create the business together and give me that confidence. So I actually started my business with a business partner. Well, I actually started my business doing Ayurvedic consultations and privates, but then I acquired a business partner, and it felt like, oh, so much safety. And okay, we can create this success together. And basically underneath the surface though, I was like, and this is why, at the time also, like when we were building our business and we were both business partners, to the outside world, everyone's like, oh, I want to find a business partner. Like I want someone who's going to help me in these areas where like we really complemented each other well. But I always tell people that even if you do complement each other, be really careful. Is this you just trying to hide behind someone because you're afraid if you get canceled? I was always afraid of that. Like if I get canceled, well, it's okay. I'm not the only one going down. Like we're both going down. Or I feel like if
so sad we have to think about that, these days. Yeah, totally.
I mean, the cancel culture, like you could put it in like different lenses from like what it was back then to what it is today. But I also felt like if I fail, then it's okay. It's like not all on me. I started with this business partner. We had like wild success. We were just like very fiery types. And then eventually it was like I was burning out again. But it was really, really hard this time for me to admit that I was burning out because everything on paper looked great. Like social media was growing. The business was doing fine, especially for a startup and a small business. But my body was like really speaking to me again. And it was like back with a vengeance. And that felt so shameful because being a healer and being so connected to my body and teaching others, I'm like, oh my God. So eventually I just had to go back to square one, like, okay, totally trust your intuition again and just rebuild it. And basically when I strengthened the voice of my intuition and stepped in my power again, I realized, oof, I need to step away from this partnership that I've actually been hiding behind it. And I've been giving away my power to this partnership, which is why I'm exhausted and burnt out. Again, I have so much grace and nothing but love for my business partner. Like I truly just want her to succeed. It was just one of those situations where our soul contracts were done and it was time to leave. But it felt really hard. I think the sisterhood breakups are so much harder than romantic breakups. Like, oh my God, that was it was huge. It's huge for me. And I was in my Saturn return. So this was like the peak of my Saturn return. There were so many lessons in there, but that was a huge one.
I love that you are sharing about the soul contract with your business partner ending and how you could both really show up in that space of honoring what was right for you, what you needed to learn together, and then let it end. Because I think oftentimes we do feel like that the contracts are forever and we feel like failures if we don't stay in those places with people. And that goes for any kind of relationship. But I think you're so on point with our sisterhood friendships and relationships. It is so hard because you feel like you're supposed to hold on to this identity of what friendship looks like forever and ever. And it really kind of feels like a failure to let it go or to let things evolve into different spaces.
Totally. I don't know if I brushed over that, but forever, anyone who's going through that, that was one of the most difficult challenges I've been through. And mainly because I really had to reconcile that I took emotional responsibility in my relationship. So I felt like her success was also my success. There was a lot underneath it that I needed to heal for sure with it. But ultimately, yeah, it was like, oh, I also feel like this brand that we created together, we had a great community of people and followers, and they're like, oh, why are you breaking up? There's people that we had to let down, and to feel like, what was that all for? But you do have to just, as we were just talking, like, I don't know why universe is telling me to do this, but I have to take this as my next step. And there were so many signs too. I actually had a mentor that kind of gave me that extra validation, which I really owe a lot of me making that big leap to her because of that. because I was so caught in the illusion where I was like, I would never have broken up because I would never want to cause pain on someone else. And that's been a hard lesson that I've had to learn, is that I'm not responsible for that pain, and that actually that pain is not bad. Like, that pain is going to push that person to succeed in their own way, as it did for me. Like, I had to rebuild everything that I was scared about building in my business, like the legalities and the financial stuff, which I kind of was like, I'll steer away from. I had to learn, and thank God, because it wasn't that hard. I mean,
it's empowering, like debilitating when you don't know something that you're putting aside as like, oh, I can't know this. But then when you learn it, you're like, oh, and then you can outsource it if you need to, but you have that empowerment. It's such a theme. I get it 100%.
Yeah, like another thing of where I was outsourcing my power, I was just saying like, oh, you'll never be able to be good at the business side of it. It's like, you literally got a business marketing degree. Like, I think you know a thing or two about it. Your father is a very successful businessman. Like, you've got it on lock, but you just have to remember your power. So I like build my whole business again, and I can't tell you how much better it felt on my body, how I was able to heal so much quicker. It wasn't definitely like an overnight situation, I'll tell you that. Like, I had to relay the foundation and I had to work on it, but I was able to create this vision and allow it to really come through me. And like, nothing feels better than that. When you are able to really receive how the divine wants to express itself through you, it felt so freeing and liberating. And that feeling is just everything to me. And I think that's something that as spiritual entrepreneurs, we sometimes get really clouded in, because there's so many conditionings. We see so many things on social media of what we think we have to do and what we should be doing, and really connecting with, I'm just sharing this because this is what is connected to my soul and what feels good for me,
right?
And nothing else. And yeah, that just has been like the best part of it. That's me now. I'm, having my own business, and I feel like I can really have my vision be clear without having to worry if this aligns with someone else's vision too. That was another piece to the story as well.
That's amazing. And I want to go back and touch on something that really, there were so many points. I was like, oh my gosh, I feel that. But when you were talking about that the pain is okay to feel, and also in showing up in your vision and what speaks to you, it's really been interesting. I've been in business a long time, and also in creative, and I'm also been intuitive a long time. So it's like I can feel everybody's everything, but I also get a very clear vision of where it is I'm supposed to go and how I'm supposed to do it. It's so incredible how we shut ourselves down from that truth that we feel in ourselves, because we are sensing how the discomfort's going to show up in other people's lives. And we literally, so many of us, so many people that I talk to, especially as empaths, especially as women, especially as healers, we shut that down. We make ourselves small. We limit our visibility because we don't want to hurt others, because we are good. We don't want to hurt and cause pain. But it's that shakeup and it's that discomfort. And then it's like we're actually taking away their challenges that they need to face, right? Like that pain and discomfort that's showing up in these different relationships ending, or the way that somebody might see what you're doing in business and get really upset about it. It might ruffle something for them or create a trigger. They need that to activate themselves, to show up in their lives and in their businesses in the way they're being called, and maybe not listening, right? But we diminish that. So I just love that you named that and that you felt that, and you were like, okay, the call is getting louder than the feeling of avoiding the discomfort. Like, you couldn't avoid the discomfort anymore. You couldn't not answer that call. It was getting so big.
And sometimes it's like you do get met with shame, like it's just not received by the other person, and they'll try to dim you, they'll try to negate it, they'll try to say why that vision shouldn't come to life. And that sometimes I think really stares people off the path, because like, oh shoot, like I guess I'm really not supposed to be doing this. Like I thought they were just going to be fully accepting in it. And to me, that's just like more fuel to my fire. That's how I like to see it, of like, okay, I'm getting back this resistance. Like my family maybe not understanding what I did in the beginning, and my business partner maybe not being on board with my final vision that I wanted to take through. Like that was all teaching me that resistance, that this is how I really step into my power and fully trust what I'm doing.
I think that's a big part of the 3 line too. I'm a 3-5. And I feel like, even though sometimes we diminish, or we might, take a minute to get there, like it's like that inner calling inside of us just keeps driving us towards finding the pieces that we know are right for us. That's amazing. I love this story so much that you share because I think so many people need the validation of your journey. And when I heard it, I was like, oh, you have to come on, you have to share this story. To circle back, because there's a couple of things I really would love for you to talk about. I'm going to go back for a second to the Ayurveda point because if you could just share with our listeners a little bit of background if they've never heard about Ayurvedic practices and how you listened into this calling to Ayurveda, but then how you needed to come back to your intuitive guidance as well. It was so beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. So I loved Ayurveda, and that was the first calling I had to Ayurveda is when I was healing my physical imbalances, which happens with a lot of healers because Mother Ayurveda is this very like nurturing, motherly energy that just wants you to learn how to take care of yourself. And it's what I needed really badly during one of my burnout cycles. So I was like, oh, this is it. I'm on board. I became an Ayurvedic practitioner, and diet and lifestyle practices, like everything was just so aligning, finding the root cause of the imbalance. And Ayurveda, another one of its cosmic laws. So there's 3 cosmic laws in Ayurveda that I like to call them. The first one is Ayurveda honors that each person has a unique mind, body, soul map. So same thing in human design, right? Each person has their own energy type, but even within those energy types, there's so many unique facets that each person has. So I'm never going to give someone the same recommendations for healing as I would the other person because they're completely different. Even if I'm going to categorize them as the same type of energy type according to Ayurveda, it doesn't even make sense. So that made me feel so seen because at the time I was going to Western doctors and just different type of science where it's like, oh, you all have IBS or you all have hormonal imbalances. Here's the same pill for each of you. The second cosmic law of Ayurveda is finding the root cause of the imbalance. Again, this feels like probably a no-brainer to this community now, but back then it was like, finally, all I kept facing was Western medicine of putting band-aids on things. And I'm like, but why did this happen in the first place? I need context. Why did it happen? Like I had so many questions and I never even got the educational piece too. When I went to doctors, they would kind of just give me like, I remember going to my OBGYN and she just kept wanting me to go back on birth control to get my period back. I was like, I really don't want to. Like, can you just explain to me like what's happening physiologically in the body? And all she said was, it'll protect my eggs, which is like, it struck that chord in me that was like, it met with a lot of like, okay, go into a different path. It met with a lot of anger at the time. But that's another thing about Ayurveda is that it empowers you. So one of the last cosmic laws is that it empowers you that you have all the tools within yourself to heal. And a true healer is going to tell you how to access that power within you, and you learn how to come up with your own treatment plan. So I learned aspects of these in order for me to really distill these cosmic laws I learned in Ayurveda. I kind of learned from like a very masculine structure where it was like very intense, this is what we perceived and from the books of Ayurveda, and this is what you're going to learn. And it was intense. Like I was working my full-time job and then I was basically a full-time student, which is like I was going to a college. Right. It was a lot. And of course I love that. That's what I was really used to. Over time, it just felt like really inauthentic to be sharing Ayurveda in that way. It just felt like I was prescribing diets and lifestyle practices. It felt really structured and rigid, and it just felt so bad in my body. And then I felt like a fraud because I was like, I'm not practicing Ayurveda in this way. I couldn't do it anymore. So I like got away from Ayurveda, and I was like, I just need a break from this. Like, I don't know what the signs are, but I just need to come back to my intuition. This was during the time when I was with my business partner and things were kind of going stagnant. And all this time I thought I was like getting away from Ayurveda when really I was just releasing the programmings that I had of what Ayurveda had to be. And I was coming back to how Ayurveda wanted to express itself through me. I realized that
I have deep chills. I'm like, yes. Beautiful.
Thank you. What I call it is the divine feminine form of Ayurveda, of how can I discover Ayurveda in my body, my physical, mental, emotional, spiritual body, and how can I activate my intuition so that helps me to align with the science of Ayurveda. So I'll always empower my clients. We first talk about how to activate the power within, and then Ayurveda is like this template that basically nurtures that intuition. It's already like, yeah, that's validation for already telling me what I knew that was true inside my body. I'm not giving you a book to read and then you change yourself from that. It's the opposite. You change from within, and then you reflect and validate it through the book's experience. So that was my whole thing.
Love
And
that.
yeah, that's basically why I birthed Divine Feminine Healers Academy, for that reason, because I love teaching Ayurveda, but I realized just understanding these cosmic laws is where the truth of Ayurveda feels for me.
And to give context, just for anyone who's like, what is this Ayurveda? It's established in Indian culture in, I want to say, 3,000 years ago. Was it more than that? I'm trying to remember
So with
the
ancient
dates.
sciences, it's so hard to know the dates because it wasn't written down. It
Okay.
was translated orally. That's how they learned, is that you had to go to the feet of your guru, and then you had to have, what do they call it? Like enough inquiry, like enough curiosity to want to actually go to your guru, and then they would just translate it orally. So 5,000 years, but it could also be
Got it.
10,000 years.
Yeah, 5,000. It's old, you guys. Like this is ancient wisdom that really taps into how we eat, how we care for ourselves, the way that we move and flow through our lives, using movement, using food, using divine connection. It embodies all of these pieces as a way for you to really find what aligns to you. And so that's what Angelica was led to. And that's what you dove headfirst into. And then you were like, wait, but my body's telling me something different. And you reconnected to that and really listened to that intuition. I know you've shared before about how you had your intuitive awakening and how then in later reflection you realized those pieces were already within you. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that too, since we're speaking of your intuitive and how that really embodied in you?
Yeah, for sure. So, and it's so interesting thinking like, yes, when I got out of like my teen, or I was in my 20s, I feel like I really activated my intuition, where I felt like I could get into the spiritual world. But when I think back to when I was a kid, like I grew up Catholic, and I remember being in the church and actually seeing my guides and like having conversations with them. It was so funny
Yeah.
that it was only activated in church, or like I had
You're like, this is where they are. So this is where, how old were you? Like when this was?
gosh, I don't know, maybe like 3 to 5, like real young.
Okay. That was the same for me. I was seeing guides and angels like pretty much since I was like, oh, those are angels. Those are aliens. Those are ghosts. It's like I was seeing all the energy dimensions as a kid too. That's why when you said that, I'm like, I have a feeling we have a similar story here.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And I'm really connected to the dream world too. So like I've been flying in my dreams since I was like so young, and like they've been so vivid. And this comes from my maternal lineage. My grandmother has premonitions, and her guides will visit her in her dreams and let her know when something's up. So I have premonitions as well. Don't always love those, but they're there. And I have a lot, like I love my dreams. Like my dream world is like my happy place, because I feel like that's when I could really connect with my soul, and like my subconscious beliefs will come out. There's lots of soul healings that happen, and I freaking love flying. So when I have a flying dream, it's like a really good time.
That's amazing. That's so funny because my generational lineage is through my mother's side as well, but no one talked about it in our family, and it wasn't until they all started coming to me, and saying, here's your lineage. And they would talk about it after, a while. I was actually in my 20s when they started coming and explaining the lineage. And I'm like, oh, interesting. Well, that explains a lot. I don't know why you guys didn't come sooner, but okay.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I feel like when I stepped into this world, and then, I talked to my mom's side, everyone was like telling me all their like dream experiences, and like it opened up this whole world. And I was like, what? Like, this has been here the whole entire time. Like, but it just really comes down to that power dynamic, I think, where we're taught that like the intuition is like something that's silly, that's something that is dimmed and not seen as the highest form of intelligence, when intuition is like connecting with that is where your power is. That's why it wants to be dimmed by the patriarchy and all these contracts that we have, is because it threatens that. And it's also like not even just your power, but that's where the divine, you can start to express yourself. So that's why everyone's like, what is my purpose? And I want to have my own business. But the reason why you want to is because you want to express yourself through that.
I love how you described that. And then also in going to that this is your expression of the divine, because I think so often when people are asking me about, well, how do I connect to my intuition and this and that, like these are the questions I'm getting a lot lately. And it's interesting because for decades and decades, like nobody wanted to talk about anything. And now everybody wants. And I'm like, this is so great. I feel like I've been waiting for this moment forever, right? To make friends that we can all talk about these things together. It's so interesting because I tell people, this is your humanness. It's just we've been conditioned to think of humanity in such a different way. And it is those patriarchal contracts, and it is, our systems that are set in place that are trying to like survive and thrive against the backdrop of what is inaccurate. Like this way of breathing, being, knowing, feeling, seeing, and us having all of these gifts, this is what's natural for our existence. This is who we are. And so I just love that you are helping others usher this in with their business and with their life. So that really segues to a question I've had, because I really want to know for you, the conversations that people come to you with, because you do have this beautiful certification, you have this beautiful coaching community. What do you feel like are their blocks and limitations to connecting with their intuition, especially since you and I know this is such an innate part of what anybody and everybody carries with them. So for you, what are those people feeling?
Yeah, I really think it's like the outsourcing of their power. So we can outsource our power to quite literally everything from the subtle level of, small addictions, even to food and habits, and then relationships. Usually when people come into my certification program, they so desperately want to leave the job that they have, but they're in this kind of toxic relationship with that job and with that entity because obviously it's feeding them, so they need to be in there. However, they have no boundaries with being able to actually take care of themselves. Like they're burnt out because they have no time to do their self-care, and they're working overtime. They're not getting paid well for what they're doing. And why they're burning out is because they're not using their gifts. So it's going to always feel like you're pushing because you're not doing something that just feels easeful to you. It's like, yeah, you could learn that and you could do that and you can make money from that. But it could be so much easier if you're just using your innate gifts and you're letting it flow through you and it doesn't even feel like you're working. That's what you're so deeply craving. So oftentimes it's women who are in these jobs and they're just like caught in between this world of like, oh, I don't want to work at this thing, but I also want to build my own business. That's going to take so much time. How do I get there? And it is like, I know we see on Instagram and stuff like this of like people just like the next day, like ripping off the Band-Aid and then everything flooding in. And that wasn't my experience with it. Like it's been a real slow build for my business, to be quite honest, of things aggregating slowly over time. And although I do like to take risks and I have ripped the Band-Aid off at times, I don't necessarily recommend that for everyone. Like you'll know in your body when it feels okay and right to make that transition. Never do it if you don't feel like you have that security underneath you, and if you're not connected to the source of your intuition telling you it's time to take that extra leap. So outsourcing their power is usually what I see, and then not listening to the voice of their intuition. They just feel really disconnected from that. So it's so funny because I'm laughing, like they're not disconnected from it. They are getting messages, but they're doubting them constantly.
Yes,
So
the doubt of the messages, or the idea of, oh, well, messages only look like this, or intuition only looks like this.
yes,
When really the world is so subtle. There's like this woven texture of energy and information around us all the time that's sending us messages and feedback. And our body is like, yeah, that's the part oh, we're here for that. Oh, we signed up for that. Or, oh yeah, I need to go that direction. And it's like, it's in the subtleties that people are just missing and then thinking, oh, that's not for me.
right. And if we don't slow down, a huge piece of this is the nervous system is just so hijacked. So obviously I got into Ayurveda and I started working with a lot of chronic conditions, digestive issues, hormonal imbalances. This is really the nervous system just hijacked. It's in flight or fight mode all the time, freeze or fawn, whatever it is. And these downloads, these messages from source cannot land in your body because there's too much chaos and the channels are clogged and blocked and nothing can land. So it really is about coming back to your body and trusting the power within you so that you can open up these channels to receive on all levels, receiving the messages from the divine, and then being able to receive abundance, however that's coming through for you. Soul abundance from working with clients that you get to share your gifts and it gets received by them. And financial abundance. Hey, you're actually supposed to be paid really well for your gifts, even though society makes you think that it's not worthy of it. You are supposed to get full nourishment from all of this.
Oh, that, yeah, I love that part because I think that that's probably our attachment in every society, our attachment to the idea of what financial abundance looks like is probably one of the biggest limitations because we're so scared to just let go and see how life unfolds. And in a lot of cases, people just think there's no way I can't do that. But I know I've lived so many different lifetimes in this lifetime because I have my 3-5 line. I'm like, all right, let's just go climb the mountain, jump off the mountain, go again, And so I've had periods of in business, extreme financial success, like what outwardly looks like success. And on the inside, feel like I'm dying a slow death. And knowing, okay, well, this isn't what I want. So what of this do I like and what don't I like? And how are other people functioning and why are they stuck in these pieces? So I went on this whole quest to understand. I wanted to understand the way other people were working because my success would come very easily and fast because I was so in flow and I am tapped in all the time. And so I'm like, oh, that's easy. And people are like, oh, you're not doing anything. I'm like, oh, I'm not doing anything. I felt like I was doing things. So again, it's these ideas of what culturally is acceptable.
Yes.
And so my success, quote unquote, was only success if it looked like hustle over exhaustion, working with, the man's world, but it's not just the man's world. Obviously, all associations of identity are here. And it's about this hustle and it's about this resistance in yourself. And almost it feels like an inflammation of life experience in yourself, And so what does it feel like when we step into our flow? And sometimes it takes a little bit of a learning lesson. For you took a big leap and then you said that you had time in your business. And it's almost like, I would imagine with a 1-3 line, it's like you have that leap instinct, but then as the investigator, it's like you want to kind of enjoy the process too of like, oh, well, what does that feel like? And you kind of get excited about that whole evolution of process. So maybe that's what you needed to really deeply ingrain your path and being able to share that path with others. But so everybody has a different approach, but then the flow is actually the same. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. For me, flow, this is why I love teaching about the divine feminine. Not because I don't think that we're both the divine feminine and divine masculine, but just because this often is the missing piece that I find with a lot of women that I work with and myself, this constant journey of, like you said, when you become a master of your body, and when I say body, I mean the physical body, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual body, that's when you're in flow. So again, like you were saying, it may look like I'm not doing more marketing, sales, or what we would categorize as like you're outputting and doing work and you should be getting it in return. I'm actually working on myself the most because my energy frequency is the frequency of my business. So this was like a huge lesson that I learned with my business and building it is I knew when I didn't feel safe in my body, for sure I wasn't going to start attracting a business in that way. But when I tune into my body and I'm so close and I built this really sacred relationship with it where I'm in my power, then I know that things are going to fall into a place because I'm trusting the messages that are coming through me and I can surrender to them. I know that they're going to work because I feel it in my body and I've built that trust muscle. But it does take time. And I feel like sometimes we are meant to, whether we go through a Saturn return or these moments in our life, we're meant to crumble and break down so that we can reflex that muscle and gain it again to trust. And that journey, although it's the same, it's a little bit different every time, right? Like for me, it's always just going like a layer deeper and deeper of really understanding these psychic gifts that I have within me and allowing that to really guide my business, which seems so even absurd to still say, because I still have like my family's voice in the back of my head or whatever that voice is that you have in the back of your head of saying that business has to be done one way or another. And I've tried that. I tried to do it someone else's way and that did not work. What I do know to be true is when I listen to my intuition, when I connect with it on a daily basis, whether through meditation, my diet, my lifestyle practices. This is why I call it Dharma, because Dharma is not just your career. Dharma means soul purpose. So I am devoted to this life from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed. Everything in my life has to feel aligned. Like, I no longer can stay out drinking all night and then wake up and pretend like that's a part of my dharma. Maybe it can be one night or something like that. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, if I did that every night, it just would not feel aligned,
It
right?
wouldn't feel good.
Like,
Yeah.
everything has to align and to feel best. So sometimes that takes time. You just have to stay with that of like, okay, and I'm a trial and error because I'm a 3. So I'm like, oh, I'll try this, whatever. I'll see if this diet works. I'll see if this new practice works in my body. And if it doesn't, I let it go. And if it does, then I go more into that direction.
I love that. And I love how you have stepped into empowerment with all of your decisions, not just in your rituals and practices, but also in your intuition, in your business, in the way that you approach food and health and healing. Because I think that I was actually just talking to somebody about this. Like, I've had my own health journey, and similarly to you, I had a lot of modern medicine, different doctors and OBGYN that completely misdiagnosed me and set me into a tailspin of healing for about a decade because of all the medication that destroyed my body from a misdiagnosis that never needed to be there. So it's all of these things that we come through in learning to trust our body, and then going on these different diets or the way that we work and do things. Even for me, going into extremist diets that I needed to heal my body, and then feeling almost like, oh, I need to claim myself as a vegan or a raw food vegan, or I want to be like strictly Ayurvedic, or, all of these different components. Like, oh, I need really high amounts of protein, but I don't want to eat tons of animal protein. It was like all of these different identities, I would say, that I was trying to wear, and none of them make sense. Like, we enjoy frameworks because it gives our mind something to say, oh, okay, I can lean into this. But sometimes we get lost in those frameworks as well, when really what we need is to trust ourselves, and ourselves always have those answers. And just like you were saying, how even the change of your life has happened at different times, like where at one point what was working for you, then as you energetically, emotionally, density had a big shift, your body and your lifestyle needed something different again. And so knowing and leaning into that trust looks like it's going to be ever changing, because we are ever changing, and that's okay. It's almost like the freedom and the power and the empowerment comes in the surrender of feeling that flow and those cycles, versus feeling locked into like, okay, I'm in this phase. Okay, next this phase. Okay, next this phase, but it's really hard because everything around us is telling us the exact opposite. So for you to be able to say, I'm just going to do it my way, and when you finally got to that point, and then you really started feeling that alignment, and now you have this beautiful community and these words and messages. I mean, that's how we connected, was online, because I came across your beautiful words and your message. And what really struck me was the truth that comes through you, the power and conviction of your truth and what you share. And I was just like, yeah, I really resonate with your honesty, with your vulnerability, with the truth of what you share. I can see that in what you're providing for others. And I think that's just so beautiful.
Oh, thank you so much. I feel so seen. Thank you.
Yes. One projector from another. I
It's
see you.
just the best feeling. I love it.
Yeah, totally. I have some general idea about the program that you've birthed, the Divine Feminine. I really want to share this because I do feel like it's such a beautiful container space that for anyone that's seeking something like that, this would be really great. So can you share about your program, about who it's for, all of the different goodies about this?
Yes, and thank you for asking. This is a program that I started from the beginning of my business, and I always reiterate it, and based on whatever's new channel messages that come through me and new ideas. And ultimately, it is to step into your power as queen and activate your intuitive gifts. Yes, this time around, it's like all this queen energy where I was like, yes, like I see all these beautiful women who are just like ready to step into their power. And when I say power, I mean truly activating all these intuitive gifts and superpowers that we have within inside our body. There's Ayurvedic aspects of learning how to heal a physical body, but also tending to the emotional body. And what are your soul gifts that you came here to do? I think so often And there's all this question of like, what's my purpose? What my dharma? I don't know what my spiritual business is supposed to look like. And you're seeking it outside of yourself. You're trying to look at someone who's already doing it and say, that's what I want to do. But the age of, lawyer, doctor is over. The only way that you're going to find what you want to be doing is if you can turn off all that noise, and if you can open up your channels to listen within, because your soul knows what it came here to do. And each person has so many different unique gifts that you can express itself. So truly, this is for women who want to start their spiritual business, lay down that foundation of being able to really trust, sharpen, hone in on their intuitive gifts, and how you can start sharing them with the world, whatever that is for your business. So some may want to be Ayurvedic healers, some may want to be Reiki masters, and it's like the gamut, whatever you feel more called to step into. There's no box you have to be put in.
That's amazing. It's just a container space that's ever evolving as we are in helping others find their connection to their truth and their missing piece, right? There's such beauty in that. I love that so much. Oh my gosh, that's exciting. And for everybody listening, I'm going to share all the information in the show notes of how to connect to the Divine Feminine Healing program, as well as Angelica. Before we go, I did want to ask you to share with us, because you've had so many iterations of wellness and what feels aligned to you. And, I feel like our quantum leaps, our flow states are found in the small, simple steps of our life. Just being able to really find that flow and that empowerment in your day-to-day. What does that look for you now? Your wellness, your routines, what feels aligned to you now?
If I really think back to it, it's really when I'm in my divine feminine flow, it's when I'm slowing down and when I'm connected to my body and listening to what she needs in every now moment. There's a certain energy that kind of overtakes you, and I'm sure every woman can really relate to this, where it's like there's just this ease and almost gushy juiciness that happens to your day where I'm literally dancing. I could be, when I'm cooking my food, I'm dancing, I'm breathing, I'm listening to Fleetwood Mac or whatever music that I want to, and I'm okay, that's when I'm in the trust. That's when I can surrender, because whatever's going to come and happen my day, I know that I could take it on. So to me, that's what really at the heart of what keeps me in the flow. And then just to kind of give people pictures of the rituals that I love, I do a form of Vedic meditation every morning. That's huge for me, but I do make sure to connect with my body and my energetic channels to see what's open, to see what needs to be cleared that day. I talk to my guides, I do some tarot pulls, make it really fun. I'm all about joy right now. So things that give me
same.
Really
yeah. Joy kick for sure. I'm am I happy about this? Okay, then no.
Yeah, if it's not giving me pleasure, fuck that.
Yeah.
I'm just so over it. I'm so over just doing things I feel like I have to. So I love working out as well. I have to get a good sweat out in the morning. It's hot yoga or going for a walk or a hike is so great. And lately being in nature, I'm a water sign for sure, but I love going on hikes, and it'll be a really long hike with, I used to listen to podcasts all the time, but just going in nature with complete silence and then connecting with the water element, if there's a stream or something, is it's so magnificent.
Where is your favorite? And because you're in LA, and I have a couple of favorites there, but I'm where is the stream? And is it in the...
Well, we've been getting so much rain. So
yeah.
My favorite hike ever. It's called Solstice Canyon in Malibu. And
yes.
Oh, I love it so much. And this stream was baby trickling. And now because it's rained so much, she's gushing. And it's the embodiment of abundance. I'm oh my God, she's alive. And if you go to the bottom, I have this secret little fairy spot, lots of fairy energy over there. And I sit on a rock, and I just picture that I'm at the Ganga, the foot of the Himalayas in India. And it is just supreme.
That is beautiful. Okay, well, I know where we're going. I know when I come out to LA again, I'm hello, Angelica, I remember that stream.
Oh my God.
I'm gonna call you up and be let's go.
Literally, I'm there in a heartbeat. And it's just the perfect hike because it goes up just enough to break up a sweat. And then as you're going down, it's this perfect view of the mountains, and in between the mountains you can see the ocean. It's just
Oh, that's
epic.
beautiful. I love that. And for anybody listening that doesn't live in an environment that they feel like resonates to that, because as well, like what is your astrology? Since you mentioned that, what is your astrology?
So I follow Vedic astrology, but I'm happy to share my Western too. But I
I
feel
share
more
both.
my Vedic astrology, I'm a rising Taurus, Sun in Cancer, and Moon in Scorpio,
Okay.
which I identify more as now just because I'm in the Vedic world. But
Mhm.
my Western is I'm a Leo Sun and Gemini rising and still Moon in Scorpio. Always got the Scorpio.
Okay, amazing. I am so in Western, I'm Virgo Sun, Sag Moon, and Aries rising. And then in Vedic,
Mm.
I'm just Leo Sun, and then Sag Moon and Aries rising. So it's kind of funny
Uh,
how it's
I
almost
love
the
Leo
same.
so much. I love Leo. In my Vedic,
So
I have a
funny.
lot of planets in Leo because I was always like, what are you doing? I'm
Yeah,
not a Leo anymore. Like, I really identify with that energy.
that's so funny. I do too. I definitely do as well. And I have a lot of planets in Leo as well. So that's so funny. But so for anybody listening that can geek out on that, there you go. Just a little side story. But I know a lot of people ask, well, I am living in like one person I talked to had moved from Hawaii to New York and was just really suffering from it. Like, I want to be in Hawaii. You can still call that in and embody that. So just
For
go
sure.
somewhere that's quiet, close your eyes, it's quiet, and you can carry with you the energy of the places that really light you up, even sometimes when you're being called to areas that don't carry that visual, right out your back
Totally.
door. So just keep that in mind, guys, for you listening.
Yeah. I mean, when I was living in Chicago, I was like cursing and I was like, I just want to live in LA. Like, this is not the place for me. And what I found was in Chicago, like, there's nature everywhere. So you just have to find what is local to where you live. And in Chicago, actually, obviously, there's the lake, but that was like kind of always far away from me and it was always really cold. But there's trees everywhere. So I would go on these walks and I would touch trees and connect with trees in that way. And that has becomes like such a great practice to be in nature as well. So
Mhm.
whatever is outside, I don't even care it's the grass. Like, go outside, touch your feet, connect to the grass. And if you
Yeah,
want to visualize that specific element in one of your favorite places, it's a wild experience.
it's beautiful. Oh, I love this conversation so much. I am so grateful for your presence here today. Thank you so much for sharing all this beautiful story and wisdom with us in this community. And I can't wait for people to get to connect more with everything you're doing. I'm definitely going to make sure everything is in the show notes and where you can find Angelica more. So thank you so much for
Oh,
being here.
oh, thank you, Georgie. You're just so sweet. And I mean, I love talking with other projectors and especially intuitives. Like, it's just a fun conversation. It's so light
It's
and
fun.
easeful. And thank you so much for having me
Oh,
on.
my pleasure. Definitely.